The following 30-minute show has been purchased by you, your league, or your league mate. The subject of the show is your league. The opinions expressed are exclusively about your league. So strap in for the most relevant fantasy football podcast you'll hear all year with hosts Andy Goldstein and Derek Jones.
Hello and welcome to your Rate My League preview show, Goober Nation. I'm Andy Goldstein, joined by Derek Jones. Derek.
Hello, my friend.
I didn't tell you this beforehand. You have no knowledge of this at all, but this is a free show for Goober Nation.
What?
Yeah,
what do they do to earn a free show?
You're working for free right now, buddy.
Working for free?
Yeah, 100th show we sold, sort of. I guess we didn't really sell this one, but they bought the show. It was the 100th football preview show we've done over the last since last preseason. So
we've done 100 of these?
Yeah, can you believe that?
No.
Yeah, forget the league. Let's just talk about us for a second. I mean,
I can't believe you've done 100 of these. Wow.
Yeah, we're gonna be over 100. It's crazy. But no, we really appreciate it, and we did see this league last year. They bought a show last year, so I thought it was cool that a repeat league bought the 100th show. So that was really cool. Morgan with Goober Nation. Nothing but love for Goober Nation.
Well, thank you guys. Much appreciated.
Standard scoring league, and it is a redraft league. And they go 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, 1 tight end, 1 kicker, and 1 defense special teams. We do have 12 teams to get to, so I feel like we should giddy on up. Sound good?
Vamos. Or whatever.
Vamonos. First up, we have Boyd You Can't Hide from Easy E. Look at that name. We got 3 references, 3 player references in there. Can you believe that?
A lot.
I mean, he doesn't have Ezekiel. Oh, he does have Ezekiel Elliott. He's got them all. Look at that. Elliott, Hyde, and Boyd. That's also, I think, the first time we've seen an Easy E reference in the name, which is weird. I felt like we were going to see a lot of those.
It is. I don't know what kind of statement it is about our clientele or what, but it just seems to be everybody's in the same like wheelhouse.
Yeah.
You know, potty humor.
Yeah.
Masturbation humor.
Yes, there's some of that. Yeah.
Game of Thrones.
Yeah, lots of Game of Thrones.
And like Harry Potter.
We didn't see Lord of the Rings this year. We had Lord of the Rings last year. There was some Harry Potter.
Yeah, and there are no Bill Cosby. Have we had? I think we may have had one Bill Cosby team this year.
Maybe. I mean, we're a little past the Bill Cosby. That's so last year, right?
Yeah.
Okay, first up, this is Morgan's team, by the way. So at quarterback, Drew Brees. Running back, Ezekiel Elliott, Carlos Hyde. Right now at wide receiver, I'm seeing Jordy Nelson, Demaryius Thomas, Dante Moncrief in the starting lineup, and then Julius Thomas at tight end. On the bench, Rashad Jennings is there, Michael Crabtree. Sneaky good season from Michael Crabtree last year, but I don't know if you're really counting on him this year. And James White, very interesting. James White with Dion Lewis down. Can White be the complete replacement for Lewis? I mean, are you going to see him step in and get the same exact stat lines?
I don't think so. I don't think it's very weird. He was drafted far higher than Dion Lewis, but like when both are in full rhythm, Dion Lewis, I think, is twice the player that James White is.
Yeah.
So I think that's a problem. And he's just quicker. He's just quicker than James White. Now, having said that, James White is a more durable player than Dion Lewis, which helps you. So, but I to answer your question, I don't think he's going to be as productive, and I don't think he's going to be as productive with Tom Brady out of the lineup.
Yeah, and there's no flex play here, so he'd have to occupy a starting running back role. Now, with Carlos Hyde, who knows? If you're talking about someone who's less durable than Dion Lewis, it might be Carlos Hyde. But we shall see what... I mean, Rashad Jennings would also be an interesting replacement for Hyde should something happen there. Overall, I think Crabtree... I mean, I talked about him a little bit when I was running through the names, but he had over 900 receiving yards last year. He was usable in fantasy, which I think last preseason we would not have predicted. Now with Amari Cooper in his second season, what's the prognosis for Crabtree?
I think Crabtree can get back to what he was a season ago.
Yeah.
Under Carr and another year of Cooper and that offense, the offensive line, the running game, I think they can mix it up a little bit, which can only help Crabtree. Look, he's not going to be a breakaway guy. He's not going to be a 1,300, 1,400 yard receiver. He's a solid, 2-3 guy who might be of usage to you in a larger league. Like, anything 10 and up, obviously, the more value he has.
Yeah, I think I would not last year. I'm pretty sure I'd have to check it, but I think Crabtree had more looks than Cooper did. I'd have to look at that just to make sure. Maybe I remember seeing something. It might have been like in the red zone, Crabtree had more looks. I'd have to look to see if exactly what that stat was. But whatever it was, I just can't see Cooper not being the primary guy this year in whatever, if it's overall or red zone or whatever. That would be the biggest worry there for Crabtree. But I do think he will still be useful. Bye-week fill-in, I think that's a good role for him. Pretty good team. Starters are good. I worry about the depth, though. I mean, Crabtree aside, James White, Rashad Jennings, I don't know what to really I don't know if I'm going to put much faith in those guys. So that's what really concerns me there. Next up, we have the A team. This is Adam's team. And went with two Jaguars. Went with Blake Bortles and Allen Robinson. We keep hearing, and I'm not the one throwing it out there, but we keep hearing, if you've read anything about fantasy football and sleepers and busts and all this and that, the one thing you keep seeing with the Jaguars is this idea of regression. It is everywhere. Are you worried about a Jaguars regression specifically for Blake Bortles and Allen Robinson?
Well, I mean, I think a part of it depends on the run game and how good the team becomes. See, one of the weird and quirky things about fantasy is sometimes the determining factor on how good a team or how good a player can be is his situation. So I think with Bortles and Robinson, you either want the Jaguars to be one of two things: bad again, so they're down all the time, so they have to throw, or to be super good with a crappy running game, like kind of New Orleans Saints-esque.
Yeah.
So that's what you need. Now, as far as like if your thinking is they're going to regress just because, I don't know if that's necessarily the case.
Mm-hmm.
I think Robinson is more likely to regress than Bortles.
Really? Because I think that would fly in the face of what a majority of fantasy people would say. I think a lot of fantasy people would say Bortles probably going to regress. Maybe Ivory's on the field more, not as good of a pass catcher as TJ Yeldon is. And they always throw out this stat about how much yardage and touchdowns Bortles had at the end of blowouts, stuff like that. But I think everyone agrees that Robinson, or most people think Robinson's talent level is very good.
Well, yeah, but the issue with that is I think it's going to be some. I mean, obviously it happens all the time. You see receivers have good years when their quarterbacks aren't playing so well.
Sure.
I think with this combination in Jacksonville, it might be hard for that to happen.
Adrian Peterson is on this lineup as well. He's pretty good. T.Y. Hilton and Julian Edelman. Ryan Matthews is also a starter. For some reason, Antonio Gates is the starting tight end right now. Jared Cook also in the lineup.
This is the worst year for tight ends I think I can remember in a long time.
Yeah, I there was one year that I remember a long time ago. I'm talking over 10 years ago that I remember reading a book about fantasy football. It was so long ago. It was before magazines.
Yeah.
It was a book, and it was talking about how bad tight ends were. Like who was Ben Coates? Wasn't he like a top 5 tight end one year. It was bad.
Yeah, because he could catch double-digit touchdowns. Like Ben Coates now would be like the 20th ranked tight end.
This is a team that, to me, has some question marks. Beyond the Jaguars, I mean, Ryan Matthews doesn't do anything for me as a second running back. Gates is a tight end. Get out of here. He's done. And really, in standard scoring, I don't know how much Julian Edelman excites me either, considering that Brady's going to be suspended for a little bit, and Edelman himself is dealing with an injury. So I'm worried about him. And the bench is not good enough. Frank Gore's boring. Will Fuller is the one wild card, I think. And maybe it's too much to ask a rookie to be that, but he's at least a tantalizing talent.
Yeah, I would agree. And, as annoying as Brock Osweiler is, just to listen to at times, he can throw the ball.
Yeah.
So
yeah, he can sling it.
Yeah, he can sling it. So that could be good for the Houston Texan receivers.
Next up, we have the Sharper Image. This is Ruben's team. And Derek, I'm going to throw this right out front. Every pro bias that I think both of us have is on this team. So I think we're going to be in agreement. This is the greatest team in the history of fantasy football.
Wow.
We last year I was a big Latavius Murray backer. It went okay. It did not go quite as I thought it would, but he's on the roster. One of my all-time favorite running backs, LeGarrette Blount, is on the roster. I'm not kidding. I was literally watching LeGarrette Blount Tampa Bay Bucks highlights 5 minutes before we started recording this. That's what I was doing.
How much do you hate that he has a Super Bowl ring with the Patriots? He has a ring.
Oh, I don't mind that. I'm rooting. I always root for the guy, and I'm assuming that Greg Schiano is like pumping gas somewhere right now because he screwed over LeGarrette Blount. That was awful.
Wasn't he on like NFL Network or ESPN or something?
I don't know. Tajay Sharp is here. Derrick Henry is here,
yes.
And Derek, your favorite, Tom Brady, is here.
Yeah. And we're going to have a little Tom Brady discussion later.
Okay, good.
When we get to another player because some news came out as we're taping this about somebody popping their mouth off.
Antonio Brown leads the way. Ben Roethlisberger is on the roster. So he's got DeMarco Murray. He's got the Murray brothers at running back. He's got DeMarco Murray, but he also got Derrick Henry backing him up, which seems exceedingly smart to do, in my opinion. And I think overall this is one of my favorite teams. Yes, I'm probably a little bit biased, but here's what I'll say. I think this is a team that's going to get better and better as the year goes on. So I think the early part of the season might be a little bit of a struggle. I think it's going to take time for the Titans to transition. I think there's going to be a transition from DeMarco Murray to Derrick Henry. I think that will happen this year at some point. So that could take some time to filter out for this team. And obviously with Brady being suspended, that's going to take some time. And I think Keenan Allen and Michael Floyd, I think these guys are going to get better and better as the year goes on. And I really like this team. I don't think anyone's going to want to play this team in the playoffs.
No, because they have options.
Yep.
You want to have options when you get to the playoffs because you want to be able to play the matchups. And that's what it looks like this team will be able to do.
The only and Eifert coming back as well, for the record.
Yeah, that's going to be big.
The only thing I'll say is between Henry, Sharp, and Thomas, there are 3 rookies that do need to contribute, which is a worry. You never want to be relying on rookies, and I wouldn't say this team is necessarily relying on anyone at the moment, but later in the season, I think it might happen. So that's the one thing I'd be a little worried about.
Right.
Next up, we have warning shots. This is Miguel's team. And Miguel has Andrew Luck at quarterback, and Jamal Charles, Thomas Rawls at running back. That's an unfortunate duo for week 1, I think. Des Bryant, Stephon Diggs. Corey Coleman is in the starting lineup right now. I will mention Josh Gordon is on the bench, waiting in the wings. Let me in, coach. I want to go in. Travis Kelce at tight end. And let's see, Rashard Matthews is on the bench. Charkandrick West is here. Does not have Spencer Ware. Well, at least as of when I printed out the rosters, he didn't have Spencer Ware, which seems a continuation of the unfortunate situation at running back. So, Derek, Well, first of all, let's start at the top. Andrew Luck back to being a top 5 quarterback this year?
I think so. I think the only thing that will get in his way is that offensive line of his. I'm not convinced those guys are better
Yeah.
than they were last year, and they got him damn near killed last year.
That is a problem. Obviously, the biggest issue right now is just the health of the running backs. Jamal Charles, Thomas Rawls. Last I heard, Charles was not going to play. Is that accurate? I think that's accurate.
Last check from Andy Reid, he had said that it was looking unlikely that he would play in Week 1.
And Roto World was using a report and then speculating off of the report that Thomas Rawls was looking at something like 5 carries in Week 1.
Oh.
So, and there's no Christian Michael here. There's no Spencer Ware here on the roster. I don't want to say the season's been submarined before it got off the ground, but if those injuries linger and this team does not have Christian Michael, and maybe we could look at the team real quick online to make sure nothing's happened, which I'll do. But if that's still true, I'm very worried about where this team is headed.
Yeah, because they have some age at running back with Charles and Forte. That's concerning. Jimmy Graham's coming off of a pretty serious injury too. So there are a lot of question marks with this team. Roberto Aguayo.
He's a reach. No matter where he was drafted, it was a reach.
Yeah, if he's on your roster, he's a reach because Tampa reached for him.
And the wide receivers here are not good enough. It'd be one thing if those running backs were there and the wide receivers were really good, but Coleman as a rookie, I'm not thrilled with Coleman as a rookie. I think long term he's going to be great. But as a rookie, I'm very, I don't know if down's the right word, but I'm going to be very patient with Corey Coleman in my assessment. And Stephon Diggs, I like him as a backup, but as a starter, problematic, I think.
Yeah, especially, they're trying to figure things out. I'll tell you what, it's going to be very interesting to see just nationwide the reaction of fantasy owners after that first week, because some of the stuff you're reading, like Kelvin Benjamin is only going to play like 35 snaps against Denver tomorrow. It just, a part of this does feel like that teams are kind of using Week 1.
Yeah, a little bit as a like a preseason game.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
Absolutely. They're like, we're gonna play everybody, but we're gonna kind of figure some stuff out as we go along. So just bear with us.
That's kind of what Pete Carroll said. He's going to treat Thomas Rawls like it's the second week of the preseason. That's literally what he said. One last point about warning shots here. I will say overall, I think their bench is a plus. I think it would be above average overall with Matt Forte and Josh Gordon and Rashard Matthews and Jameis Winston even. But
Right.
The starters are just not good enough. So next up, we have Kamir and Suck My Dixon. Come here and suck my dick. This is Anthony's team. He's got Amir Abdullah, you see, and he's got Kenneth Dixon for some reason. I don't know why. So this team has Rob Gronkowski, which is good. And you know what? I think here's what I'll say. I think the value picks that they got,
Right.
they got Doug Baldwin in the 4th round. They got Deshaun Jackson in the 5th round. And I'll even throw out Melvin Gordon and Amir Abdullah in the next 2 rounds. Those are the picks that are going to really those are the make or break picks for this team. From Baldwin to Abdullah, that's what's going to make the difference for this squad. I don't think anything else matters. Well, okay, Rob Gronkowski matters, but everything else, whatever.
Well,
I mean, it's those guys, right? Baldwin, D-Jax, Melvin Gordon, Amir Abdullah. If those guys hit, this team is going to go far.
Yeah. No, I don't see how there's any way around that. And they're going to have to hit because, Ingram has an injury history, and he's played well at times and in patches, but he has shown you that he just can't stay healthy.
So this team has been on the Terrence West roller coaster, I guess, a little bit too. They have Terrence West, they have Justin Forsett, and Kenneth Dixon. So they've just kind of taken the approach that they're going to go with every Baltimore running back and hope for the best. Of course, the fact that he's got those three and does not have Javorius Allen means that Javorius Allen, by the fantasy gods, will be the one to get the most fantasy points. We shall see what happens there. Overall, Derek, what are your impressions for this team?
Not my favorite.
Really?
That I've seen so far. Too many things need to go right for them to be good.
Is it just because you don't like Eli Manning?
And it's actually got. I actually think I like Eli Manning way more than you do.
That's probably true.
I just think, and I like Jarvis Landry. I like Doug Baldwin, Deshaun. I don't have any problem with. The running back thing is a little creaky, and again, I've often said, this is the deal with Eli. If I have Eli, the rest of my team has to be good. Like, there can't be weeks where you need him to carry you. and that is my problem with this team. So if you slid in even Roethlisberger or Luck or somebody who somebody right now who's in that 5 to 10 range as a quarterback, I know it's tough to kind of slot those guys in this particular situation, but I would feel better about this team if they had somebody besides Eli.
Next up, we have the Skywalkers. This is Olaf's team, and Olaf has a good running back group. Lamar Miller, Le'Veon Bell. He's got DeAndre Williams as a handcuff. And, well, he's got the Spencer Ware that a certain other team could use.
Oh, boy.
So, Lamar Miller and Le'Veon Bell, very strong. I do worry, however, about, I don't know, everything else. Wide receiver, Randall Cobb. You can get by with Randall Cobb as a really weak number one, maybe. But then, behind him, Jeremy Maclin and Emmanuel Sanders, not inspiring a ton of confidence. And, oh, by the way, Tyrod Taylor at quarterback. I like Tyrod Taylor for his value, but I don't want to start him week one.
No.
And that's pretty much all there is. I mean, the bench right now, I also don't love. Tyler Lockett, Torrey Smith, Philip Dorsett. Unless Charles is out for a significant amount of time, this bench doesn't really have a ton to offer either. Yeah,
and, we haven't talked about this too much when you look at leagues that have just one or two quarterbacks. But if you're in a league where you have one quarterback and it's anybody in that northeast corridor, man, you've got to be worried about that. And I don't – going back to Eli – and that was just talking about Eli's playing ability. We didn't even really get into the weather stuff.
Yeah.
That you got to be worried about that. Tyrod Taylor is Tyrod Taylor going to win you a title in week 16 or win you a playoff game a week or two earlier playing in 20-degree weather? I mean, those are the type of things you have to be worried about.
Yes, sir. Next up, we have Dangerous Watkins Yourself.
Man, these names are really trying hard.
Dangerous Watkins Yourself. This is Alex's team, and Alex, of course, has Sammy Watkins to go along with Brandon Marshall at the wide receiver spot. Now, the third wide receiver right now is either going to be Sterling Shepard or Devin Funchess. Not strong, but Watkins and Marshall is a very nice one, too. And David Johnson was the first-round pick here. So this team went David Johnson, Brandon Marshall, Sammy Watkins, Jeremy Hill, Russell Wilson, then Arian Foster in round 6, Derek.
I'm not on the Arian Foster bandwagon this year.
No. I was going to say something snarky like, well, my motto this year is if you can take Arian Foster in the 6th round of your fantasy draft, you have to do it. But that would be mean. I wouldn't want to do that.
Bill Simmons of you.
But really, how dare you? But really, Foster's going to play like 3 games this year. So, look, he's got Ajayi, and that's great. But that's a running situation overall that I don't want to have any part of. But anyway, back to the main event here. David Johnson, very nice. Brandon Marshall, Sammy Watkins, very nice. And then I think it falls off a little bit. The draft kind of goes haywire. Hill is okay. That's fine. But then Russell Wilson in round 5. And then Arian Foster, Sterling Shepard, Devin Funchess, Jay Ajayi. It just, there's not a ton of upside for a lot of these guys. Although I will say Sterling Shepard is an intriguing player.
Yeah, he has a chance, I think, to be productive. It's been a weird off season for him after he got drafted. He got a lot of buzz.
Yep.
And then that buzz kind of died down quickly once the game started.
Yep. Yeah. So, your thoughts on this team? I don't have this team as a playoff group. What about you?
Ooh.
And don't get me wrong, Wilson, Johnson, and Watkins, I love that trio, but they're going to need help.
Yeah, I think they're going to be a little short. Like, if you tell me Russell Wilson's going to play the way he did in the second half of the year all year long,
yeah.
Well, then you got something on your hands there. But man, he was playing at a historical level for that last half of the season. I just don't think that's who he is over the course of 16 games. And then, it's funny, man. Everyone is so – I'm not saying it's not going to happen, but everyone's so sure David Johnson's just going to kill everyone. Like, and I believe that, but – but everyone's so strong about it, it's almost convincing me it's not going to happen.
Yeah. So I assume that Dwayne Allen and Jason Witten as a tight end duo doesn't get you going too much?
No, absolutely not. I want to like this team, but there's just something missing.
Next up, we have Palmer is a Gurley. They got someone at quarterback, and then at running back, they got Todd Gurley, LaShawn McCoy. They also have Matt Jones, Theo Riddick, Jerick McKinnon, and Shane Vereen all on the bench there. Wide receiver, Alshon Jeffrey, Marvin Jones, Willie Snead, and Marcus Wheaton. And that's it on the bench. I mean, that's not a very deep wide receiver group. When you're starting Marvin Jones and Willie Snead, and the only guy on your bench is Marcus Wheaton, that looks like an issue. Greg Olsen is at tight end, and that's nice. Is there anything else you want to talk about with this team, Derek, for some reason?
Yeah, let me address the quarterback of this team for a moment.
Okay.
Carson Palmer, as we're taping this, had some snide remarks to make about Tom Brady. He more or less said, hey, I don't know anything about this story, but this guy got what he deserved. Carson Palmer is a 0 trying to become a 1. He has one playoff win in this league.
Oh, that's not fair. He
has one NFL playoff win, which he kind of stunk in.
Hang on. Would the Bengals have beaten on the play he was injured on in that game? Would the Bengals have beaten the Steelers? Mind you, he played like one play, and it was an 80-yard touchdown pass.
You know what? To be honest with you, they wouldn't have won that game. Something would have happened because that's who he is.
You're such a hater.
That's who he is. He's won one playoff game in his career.
If I asked you that question like 4 days ago before the Brady comments, what would your answer have been?
I like him, but you know what? He's a candidate for regression this year. Now, you know what? Not a high character guy. This is a karma guy right now. You don't want bad karma guys on your team.
You're such a Brady. It's ridiculous. I do love the running backs here. I mean, Todd Gurley and LaShawn McCoy are going to carry this team to a number of victories this year.
They're going to have to.
They're going to have to because the rest of the team is that wide receiver group is just a team killer. That is just not good.
Can you imagine what this receiving group is going to be like when Alshon Jeffrey strains his hamstring 3 weeks in?
Matt Jones in round 5, that's a reach. Marvin Jones in round 6. I like Marvin Jones, but that's not super great value. Right. Carson Palmer in round 7. Why? Willie Snead in round 8.
Nope.
Those are just that doesn't do it for me. And if this team wins, I don't care. Still doesn't matter. Next up, we have Drinking Forte ounces with Gurleys.
Oh my God.
This is Jose's team, and Jose knows what he's doing. Because if you're going to drink 40 ounces, you better do it with some girlies. First up, quarterback Aaron Rodgers. You have C.J. Anderson at running back to go along with T.J. Yeldon. At wide receiver right now in the starting spots, this is what I like to see. Julio Jones, Mike Evans, Golden Tate. That is a wide receiver trio, Derek. He's also got Kamar Aiken on the bench. He's got Christian Michael on the bench, who I guess is sort of a starter this week.
Right.
Chris Ivory's there. It's an okay bench. I would say that's an average bench overall. But with those starters, Rodgers and Jones and Evans and Tate, it really comes down to C.J. Anderson he's just got to live up to his ADP, which he didn't do last year. But if he can do it this year, this team's okay.
No, and it'll be, man, how interesting is that Denver running back situation now? No Ronnie Hillman. And it looks like it's just going to be C.J. Anderson and Devontae Booker. They have to be pretty confident in what's going on.
Yep. This team actually traded, for the record, they had a little handcuff trade. They traded Derrick Henry for T.J. Yeldon. Just so you know.
Interesting.
So, yeah, I don't know. It's a good team. I like this team. I think I don't know if I would say this is my favorite necessarily, but I think this is a team that's going to be right there. Again, it just comes down to me, it comes down to C.J. Anderson, and that is sort of scary. But if that's what it comes down to, there's a lot of teams that there's really no player it comes down to because they're just not there. This team has a shot.
Right.
So, next up, we have... Oh, I meant to say the Travis Benjamin pick in round 9 is the one pick I looked at and I was like, what is going on? Why? What does Travis Benjamin do for you in round 9? I don't get that. But
yeah, that's weird.
The wide receivers are already legit, so it doesn't hurt him that much. Next up, we have Beats by DeAndre. This is Caesar. I remember having a question about this last year. Was it Caesar or Cesar? I don't know. It was never answered. Morgan never answered me. Morgan doesn't care what I call Caesar or Cesar.
I prefer Cesar.
I had a neighbor named Cesar, so that's why I like it.
Yeah.
But I feel like maybe it's... I don't know. What do I know? I know nothing.
Cesar just sounds more official.
It sounds like someone who'd be a swordsman in Game of Thrones, to be honest with you. So I really like this roster, by the way. And real quick, just to go over some of the highlights here, Eddie Lacy and DeAndre Hopkins, Brandon Cooks, Jordan Reed, Phillip Rivers, and his bench, I think, is pretty strong. Duke Johnson, Kevin White. Kevin White is a very interesting player, very much a boom bust. He could be nothing. He could be completely worthless, but his ceiling is also really high. He has, of all the guys who are in this sort of position that I would call a boom bust player, I think he's got one of the highest ceilings at wide receiver. If he finished the year top 15, I wouldn't be shocked. I mean, I'm not predicting that by any stretch of the imagination, but I think his talent level is good enough that I can make that argument.
I feel like that's a legitimate statement. I'm not going to get on you for that.
Did I qualify it enough for you? He's also got Jordan Howard, because he's got Jeremy Langford and Jordan Howard, which I think is smart. I don't love the Jeremy Langford being the second running back, but at least he's got Howard in case something does go horribly wrong there. And I've always been a big Duke Johnson fan. So I think this is a really balanced, maybe the most balanced roster we've looked at. And I don't know. I could see it kind of crashing and burning for a bunch of these guys. But Hopkins and Cooks, is this team in business?
I don't like them as much as you do. I think a lot is riding on Eddie Lacy's shoulders this year.
Yes, I agree, but I guess I'm higher on Lacy than you are.
I do like Eddie Lacy this year. I think he's going to have a bounce back year. I think he understands the serious nature of what he did last year. So I think he'll bounce back. I guess my question with this team is Jordan Matthews, Kevin White, Laquan Treadwell.
Yes.
And I'm going to throw Steve Smith Sr. out of the equation.
Yeah, okay.
Which one of those guys can give you something?
Yeah, I think it's a tenuous hold this team has on being really good. But you're right. If they're going to be really good, it's going to come down to probably one of those guys. And if I had to pick, it would be White, which is scary, but
And he's got a lot of stock in the Bears here.
that's true. That's true. I also I will say I think Phillip Rivers is going to be better than his ADP this year. So.
Well, yeah, we kind of whenever we see Phil Rivers, I think we just kind of gloss over him a little bit.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's out of disrespect. I mean, he's just one of those guys he's relatively steady. I don't think he's in that Eli Manning tier, but not in a bad way. He's just.
You know what I like about Phillip Rivers?
What's that?
He's got like 12 kids. So he doesn't want to go home ever. He's got to keep making money. He can't stop making money.
Yeah, really. He people talk about Brady, wanting to play till he's like 45 or 50. Phil Rivers may have to play.
He's going to have to.
Until he's 45 or 50. He just has to keep going.
He doesn't want to be in that house. There's no way he wants to go to that house.
He can't. And I look, I know he's a boy from the South and family guy and all that. Jeez, man, that's got to be a load.
Next up, we have Newton is a Freeman. Newton is a Freeman.
No,
this is G's team. G doesn't want to give us his name. That's fine. Whatever, G. He's got Cam Newton and what I can only describe as the biggest set of blue balls at running back in a standard scoring league. He's got Devontae Freeman, Danny Woodhead, and Giovanni Bernard.
You classify that as blue balls?
Yeah, that's the fantasy football standard scoring equivalent of blue balls. Because in PPR, that's tremendous. You know how exciting it is to have 3 pass-catching running backs at your running back slot in PPR?
I smell what you're cooking here. Okay.
But in standard scoring, they're going to catch a bunch of 0-yard passes, and you're going to be bummed out because they're not going to get you any points for it. Blue balls at running back there. Odell Beckham Jr. is the opposite of that. He's very exciting. You can get off with Odell Beckham Jr. is what I'm trying to say there. Amari Cooper. I like Amari Cooper. Eric Decker. That's a nice little wide receiver trio. And, I mean, if it weren't for the running backs, I would be very excited about this team. I still think it's a solid, good team. I'm just not quite as high on them because of the scoring system.
Yeah, there's no doubt that's going to be, I think, a little bit of an issue. Danny Woodhead just doesn't have nearly the value he would in PPR in a standard scoring system. So that's definitely a problem.
It's not bad. It's again, we just saw, I think, 2 of the more balanced rosters in the league between this one and Beats by DeAndre.
Right.
But I think this one lacks the ceiling that Beats by DeAndre has. So, I mean, it's hard to say that with Odell Beckham Jr. on the roster because he alone is, like, worth a ton of ceiling. But otherwise, outside of that, I don't know. I mean, Beckham and Newton are certainly high ceiling players, but Decker, Freeman, and Woodhead don't qualify as that to me this year. So, I don't know. Playoff team?
I think they have a chance to be a playoff team, yeah.
Next up, last team, we got Kick His Ass Sebastian. This is Gerald's team. Naming your team after a kicker. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't like it.
Just on principle?
Yeah, it just sets the wrong tone.
This team, this team, well, I don't know. There's other things you can do on Sundays other than watch football. You can go swimming at the local YMCA.
Oh, man, you're cutting him off at the knees.
You got to stay in shape. But Derek Carr, Doug Martin, Jonathan Stewart, Larry Fitzgerald is a starter. The bench is Vincent Jackson and, well, I do love Anquan Bolden, but it's not 2006 anymore, so I don't know. I don't like this team. Maybe I'm a hater. I'm not a big Kelvin Benjamin guy. I could see him doing well, and that would be a big boon for this team. He needs Kelvin Benjamin to do well, to be honest with you. but I'm not on the Kelvin Benjamin bandwagon. The running backs are so boring. You're not going to win anything at running back. You might hold serve at running back if you're lucky, but that's about it. Derek Carr is just a volume guy. I don't know. AJ Green, someone save AJ Green. He's got to trade AJ Green and get like 3 exciting players in return.
Yeah, this is going to be tough for him, I think, to compete in the long run. One of the things you try to envision when you look at these teams is what is this team going to look like during a given bye week? And let's say AJ Green's out.
Look, I'm being a little harsh on Gerald. I think this team. Look, here's what I'll say. This is the opposite strategy of Cesar's team, right? Cesar went for it. His team might crash and burn. By week 6, Cesar might be 0-5, and he might be at the YMCA swimming or hanging out in the locker room or whatever people do at the YMCA. But I think Cesar went for it. So there's a chance that Cesar has a dominant team that would be a favorite to win the title. And Gerald is just this team, its best case scenario is going 500 and then losing in the first round of the playoffs. So maybe the waivers will change that. Come on, Gerald. Hurting me deep inside. I think we're good. I think we've done enough.
I think so too, man. You're killing them.
Quick recap. I'm not killing anyone. You know I'm kidding. I mean, your team stinks, but you know I'm kidding about everything else. I do like sharper image. Ruben would be my favorite going into the season. Cesar, of course, is this crazy, chaotic team that could do anything. Is there anyone else you like?
There was one team that I did like a little bit more than you did, I think.
Was it the Eli Manning team?
No, I think it was the A team.
The A team. That's Adams' team.
Yeah.
Bortles and Robinson?
Yeah. I think I like them a little bit more than you do.
That's fine. Drinking 40 ounces with Gurley's, Jose's team, I think that's a good team too. That's a candidate to be there in the finals. But I think for me, there's clearly that sort of cusp at the top with some interlopers who could get in there. But we shall see what happens this year. Thanks again to Morgan and the rest of the league. You guys are awesome. And I think that's it. You can follow me still on Twitter at RateMyLeague. And I think we're done.
Thank you, guys.
Adios.
See you.